Yo, 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 what's happening, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Sports Talk of Elite Wages. I am your host, Elite Wages, and this is NFL Week 4. A little recap on last week. Didn't do too well. 5-7 for minus 2.2 units. Not concerned. We will make it back over the course of the season. Starting with this week, I got a very good feeling about this weekend's games and matchups. Before we get into those and before we get into the fan team red zone contest, I want to send you all over to my Twitter as always, making sure you're following, you like and retweet my posts about anything NFL related. I do also have a post here for my early Thursday night football best bet, which is a 3-unit play. I will break that down on this episode as well, so keep listening for that. But yeah, make sure you like, retweet, following, notifications on so you do not miss a single thing to do with NFL from myself on Twitter. So let's get over to the NFL Sunday Red Zone contest for Week 4 over on Fan Team. A little team reveal that I've got here. I feel like I've built it out very, very well. I do have 2 ways of going with this team, so I will note that down as well. So starting off with the quarterback position. When this loads, there you go. Quarterback position. There's a lot of decent quarterbacks, high-priced quarterbacks, obviously. Lamar Jackson being very, very good this season, on the ground, in the air, being the most expensive. Caleb Williams, which is a surprise to see him, second most expensive, but he does have a soft matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders. For me personally, I'm not going to take anyone sort of this highly priced. Baker Mayfield, I think, will be a good option. Philly do tend to be a little bit slack in the secondary, so that will allow for Baker Mayfield to be able to find his receivers. Similar thing for Justin Herbert. Obviously, he's playing the New York Giants, who haven't played very well so far this season. But for me, I'm going to go with Matt Stafford. Obviously, Matt Stafford is known for being a bit of a slinger. 5 passing touchdowns so far, 439 passing yards during the season so far, averaging 246. As you can see, he hasn't sort of blown the socks off any team. Under 200 passing yards against the Eagles, 2 passing touchdowns. Obviously, the interception didn't help as well. 4 against the Titans, again another interception. Nearly 300 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns. And then against Houston, 1 passing touchdown and nearly 250 through the air. Obviously, this week, playing against Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are expected to win this game. Well, I personally think the Colts will win this game. It's going to be a very, very close game, so I think the passing game will be involved quite heavily for the Rams. Puka Nacua is, leading the league in receiving yards, I think, in fantasy points, so he's top of the league for fantasy points for a wide receiver, so I think he's going to get a lot of help from his wide receiver. Obviously, they've got Devontae Adams as well helping him out, so I think Matt Stafford can get a decent number and at a decent price as well. So moving on to the wide receivers, I'm going to go for Igbuka. He's been in my team every week since week 1. 3 receiving touchdowns. He had 2 in the first. He had 3 in the first 2 weeks. So he had 2 against the Falcons with 67 receiving yards. He had another one against the Houston Texans with just 29 receiving yards. But then last week, he was sort of wide receiver 1, 6 receptions, 85 receiving yards, and that totaled for 14 points per game. 14 points in that game. Again, as I said before about Baker Mayfield, they've got a decent matchup. Philadelphia, they don't tend to be very locked down in the secondary. Baker's a very good quarterback, and I think Igbuka is going to be his go-to guy in this game, so I'm backing Igbuka to have a big game. We'll go then with Deebo Samuel. He's played really, really well through the first 3 weeks, especially in the first 2 weeks. As you can see there, rushing touchdown, 7 receptions, and he nearly went for over 100 scrimmage yards as well against the Packers. Bit of a down game, but he did get that receiving touchdown, over 50 scrimmage yards as well, 7 receptions to add to that. And then against the Raiders, that was a very a low game for himself. But I'm expecting him to pick it up again. The Falcons haven't played too well this season. They've allowed a lot of points, and I think the Washington Commanders can look for this game to be a comfortable win. And I think if they do get Jaden Daniels back, that will benefit Deebo Samuel. But even without him, Marcus Mariota, I think he can find Deebo and go to his go-to target and his number one target outside of Terry McLaurin. So I think Deebo Samuel is going to pick up from a weak game last week. And then we're going to go to Kansas City. This one's a little bit of a tricky one in my opinion. So I'm going with Thornton. When you look at Kansas City, Xavier Worthy is questionable. He is expected to return, but I'm going to assume he's on a snap count. He has looked good in practice, but I'm going to assume he's on a snap count. That will make Thornton wide receiver 1 if Xavier Worthy is out. He has performed very well so far. You've got Hollywood Brown as well, who's also performed fairly well, and Juju Smith Jr., who has, at a really, really good price. He's played fairly well as well. So I'm going to go with Thornton. I think even with Xavier Worthy coming back, I think Thornton will be, highly used. 2 receiving touchdowns so far, 171 receiving yards with 57 on average. His last 2 games, he's had over 10 fantasy points in both of those. Against a tough team as well, against the Eagles. They'll now face the Ravens, who just allowed an absolute ton of points to the Bills and to the Lions. I think the Kansas City offense can look for this game to be another one where they can sort of spread their wings a little bit and get some guys going. I think Thornton is going to be that guy. So this is where I could play it 2 ways. So I could go with Thornton, and then that would mean I'm going to play Conklin at tight end, and we'll talk about Conklin a little bit now anyway. So Conklin, he hasn't played every single game. He's missed the last 2 games. In week 1, 50 receiving yards, 2 receptions, and 2 rushing yards. Looked like he was going to be tight end 1, and then he sort of missed a few games with Disley taking his place. But I'm going to go with Conklin again. I'm hoping he can get back to that week 1 sort of performance, maybe grab a touchdown as well, playing the New York Giants, as I said, with Justin Herbert. If he doesn't start again, it will be Will Disley, which I'm fairly comfortable with anyway. He's not too much cheaper than Conklin anyway. So we'll look down here. Disley's there. He's 0.5 cheaper, so I'm fairly happy with either one of these two, but I'm going to go with Conklin. If you switch Thornton to Juju Smith-Schuster, who's the other guy I was talking about a second ago, he's played fairly well. 6.1 million for Juju. No receiving touchdowns. He had 55 and 5 receptions in week 1. A bit of a down week there in week 2. But then against the Giants, another 55 yards, 4 receptions. So he can be, a bit of a safety blanket for Patrick Mahomes. If you do want to save a bit of budget, maybe go for a more expensive tight end, I would play Juju in this position instead of Thornton. And then that would mean you would have a little bit more budget, where I was looking to go for, who was I going to go for? I was looking to go for Hunter Henry, the second most expensive tight end on the board, but he's played really, really well to start the year. 2 receiving touchdowns, averaging 55 yards per game. As you can see there, he's had 2 games over 10 points. Against the Steelers, 2 touchdowns, 90 yards, 8 receptions. And again, they've got a decent matchup in this game against the Carolina Panthers. Their defense isn't locked down, and I think New England can actually punish them a little bit. So if you do want to play it that way, you can go Hunter Henry in the tight end position with Juju Smith, Schuster, or you can go Thornton here and Conklin there, like I have done there. I'm probably going to take it that way in the lineup anyway. But moving on to the running back room, I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think he needs much explanation. He's one of the best running backs in the league. 3 rushing touchdowns, averaging 60 rushing yards per game, and averaging another 24 receiving yards, so almost 100 scrimmage yards per game. Against the Ravens, he had 99 scrimmage yards, 5 receptions, 2 touchdowns. I actually had the bet on him for 100 plus scrimmage yards on the touchdown, so I missed that by 1 yard, which was disappointing. But again, against the Chicago Bears, over 100 scrimmage yards again, another touchdown. And then week 1 against the Green Bay Packers, he did have a down game, but he did have 10 receptions, showcasing his potential for a big pass game as well as a run game. So I'm going to go for Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously, playing against Cleveland, one of the best run defenses in the league. But again, Gibbs can be used through the air as well, so I'm not concerned about him playing a decent defense in his position. And then we're going to go with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry has played insane against the Kansas City Chiefs in the past. I think I read somewhere where he scored 7 touchdowns in 5 games, I think, against the Kansas City Chiefs. He's got 3 rushing touchdowns so far this year, averaging 80 rushing yards per game. And aside for that week 1, he's not really played too good against the Browns or the Lions. This week, obviously, he plays the Kansas City Chiefs, and again, history shows that he can play very well against the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm going to go for Henry for that particular reason, and hopefully he can get back to his week 1 performances that he showed in week 1. And then I'm going to go with Hampton as well. The rookie running back for the Chargers, he is 3rd in rookie rushing yards per game on the season, 142, averaging 47 per game. But again, he's got a nice number through the air as well, 24 on average through the air, 1 rushing touchdown. Last week was his big breakout week, over 100 scrimmage yards and a touchdown. Struggled to get going in the first 2 weeks, but this week again he does have a nice sort of matchup against the Giants. Giants have a decent defense and a decent front, but I think it will be a bit of a beneficiary for Hampton to be able to get involved in this game. So I'm going to pay the price for Hampton, and I'm going to add him to Henry and Gibbs. And then for the defense, I'm also going to go for the Chargers defense as well. One of the most expensive on the week, but one of the best defenses in the league. The defense is now going to face Jackson Dart. Jackson's Dart first game playing against this defense is very scary. 7 sacks on the year, 3 interceptions. Managed to keep obviously under 20 points once as well, but very, very close. Very good defense for the Chargers. So I'm going to expect them to be able to get to Jackson Dart quite often and regularly, put him under pressure, and I think that's going to be a huge difference in this game. And I think, again, in turn, that'll help them lead and give Hampton more carries of the ball as well. So this is my final draft team for this week's NFL Red Zone contest over on FanTeam. Again, you can play Juju instead of Thornton, and then play Hunter Henry up here, which I like either way as well. But for me, I'm going to go for Tyler Conklin, Thornton, Egbuka, Deebo Samuel, Matt Stafford, Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, Hampton, and then the LA Chargers defense. But over 80 receiving yards, that's going to be a 2-unit play. Jackson Smith-Njigba, 2nd most receiving yards in the league so far, 323, averaging 107. He's actually surpassed 100 or more in weeks 1 and 2. He ended last week with 96. The Cardinals allow the 7th most receiving yards to the wide receiver position. They've also allowed opposing wide receiver 1s 100 or more receiving yards in back-to-back games. Ricky Pearsall having 117, McMillan having 100. And on top of that, the Cardinals allowed Mac Jones 284 passing yards, Bryce Young 328, and now they play Sam Darnold, who is arguably better than both of those quarterbacks with a better wide receiver. So we're going to go 2 units, Jackson Smith-Njigba over 80 receiving yards. I'm also going to put another 1 unit on JSN for 100 or more receiving yards, and that's going to be at plus 180. So 3 units in total on Jackson Smith-Njigba. The next play on the board for me is going to be in the where is it? We'll go for the Commanders. So that's going to be at minus 120. We'll take that money line, minus 120 for the Commanders to win. Again, the Falcons haven't played too well to start the year. Commanders have looked much better, even with Marcus Mariota. They have a better sort of starting lineup, one of last season's best offensive teams. And again, the Falcons have struggled quite a bit to start the year, so I think the Commanders are the better option in this game. As you can see here, head-to-heads, led by Washington. It's just I think it's just a game that Washington are going to want to extend their lead with after being 2-1. 2-1. Sorry. So we're going to go with for Washington Commanders moneyline at minus 120. The next one on the list is, when we find it, just trying to look at my list at the same time, the Jaguars. So we're going to go for the Jaguars plus 3.5. We'll take the 0.5. And again, it's minus 115. Playing against the 49ers, I'm not convinced on the 49ers at all. I don't think they're as good as they're the worst 3-0 team in the league, and that's a fact. They are, nowhere near the level of majority of the teams in this league. They've had a lot of injuries, which is obviously unfortunate for them. But the Jacksonville Jaguars, they have played a lot better. So the 49ers, obviously 3-0. They had a 4-point win against the Seahawks, a 5-point win against the Saints, and a 1-point win against the Cardinals. The Jaguars, on the other hand, 16-point win against the Panthers, 4-point loss against the Cardinals, and a 7-point win against the Texans. In my opinion, I think this Jacksonville Jaguars team is a lot better. It's in a lot better position as well, a lot better place offensively, and without half the injuries. So I'm gonna take them to I think they win this game outright, but I'm going to take them to lose at least by 3 points and get the victory for us this week at minus 115. The next one on my list is the Chicago Bears. I'm going to go Chicago Bears money line. I actually got this at plus 100, so at 2.0 odds. It's now down to minus 110 at 1.90. But again, the Raiders been blown out in the past couple of weeks, losing 20-9 against the Chargers, and then also allowed the Commanders 41 points last week as they lost by 20 plus. On the other side, the Chicago Bears, they're only 1-2, but they looked very competitive against the Vikings, where they lost by 3, and then obviously blown out by the Lions, but then again very competitive and very dominant against the Dallas Cowboys, winning by 16. I think this is another game similar to the Cowboys game. The Raiders are looking a little bit lost. Geno Smith doesn't look at his best. Genty has had a hard time getting space from his O-line. I think the Bears are just in a lot better place. Caleb Williams being one of the best passers in the league so far this year. With his 2-star receivers, DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. Swift at the backfield, decent O-line, good solid offensive coordinator and head coach in Ben Johnson as well now. So I'm going to go with the Bears to win money line. Let's have a look. Where's my next one? Come on, Bucks. The Buccaneers against the Eagles. I'm going to take them on the spread as well. Another underdog. So I'm going to go with plus 3.5 at minus 110. And again, I don't think the Eagles are playing as well as people expected them to. They are 3-0. Came close against the Rams, and obviously it came down to a blocked field goal return for a touchdown. That's what got them the win. So it was that close. 3-point win against the Chiefs, again, very, very close. And a 4-point win against the Dallas Cowboys. And obviously the Cowboys aren't very good, period. So again, they haven't sort of performed as well as a lot of other 3-0 teams. Similar story though for the Buccaneers. Haven't performed as well as everyone knows they can. Last year, again, one of the best offenses in the league with Baker Mayfield. 3-point win against the Falcons, 1-point win against the Texans, and a 2-point win against the Jets. Keeping all these games very, very close. And I think that's going to be a theme for this game, keeping it very, very close. With the Bucs winning, regularly by 3 points maximum in all 3 games. The Eagles keeping it very, very close as well. I think the Buccaneers can actually get the win in Philadelphia, and I think they definitely cover the plus 3.5 spread. So that's where we're going to roll for that one. And then the final play of the week. Is it the final play? Yes, it is. The final play of the week for me is going to be down on Monday Night Football. We've got 2 games Monday Night Football. We're going to go for the early kickoff, and we're going to go for Jets money line. We're not taking the points on this one. We're going to go straight money line on this. And the reason being, Justin Fields is supposedly meant to be back in this game. I think that's a huge factor. Tua for the Dolphins hasn't looked good at all. Their offense has looked very, very sloppy. Losing 33-8 against the Colts. They lost against the Patriots as well, and against the Bills by 10 points. yeah, their offense just hasn't looked good. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle haven't had the feed that they'd like. Darren Waller hasn't yet played due to injury. Achan is probably the only good player on this team so far this year. Defensively, haven't been very good either. The Jets are also 0-3, so both 0-3 teams, but they played very, very, very competitively against the Steelers, losing by just 2 points after putting up 32 points. Then, obviously, Justin Fields went down in the game against Buffalo where they lost by 20. But then last week, Tyrod Taylor almost got them the victory against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Came down to a late, I think it was a field goal. Yeah, late field goal, walk-off field goal for the Buccaneers to win that game as they lost 29-27. But again, another very competitive game. And now you add back in Justin Fields to run the ball, throw the ball. I think the Jets can get this win outright, and that's going to be at plus 130, which is very nice odds for the Jets to win. And then we're going to move on to the Moneyline Parlay, which is one of my favourite things to do for this week. So it's 6 teams, all to win, and it's going to start off with the LA Chargers. Again, mentioned it before, playing against the New York Giants. New York Giants playing Jackson Dart against this scary defense of the Chargers. I think the Chargers can get the win. The next one is the Lions against the Cleveland Browns. I think there's no explanation for this. The Browns aren't very good. They obviously shocked the Packers last week. It was a very low-scoring game. Again, a blocked field goal for the Packers. Lost them the game and basically won the Cleveland Browns the game. I don't think it comes close, to be honest, in this game. Detroit Lions is just looking really, really good the past couple of weeks. So I think the Lions can grab the win fairly easily. We will also add in the Commanders. Obviously, as I mentioned before, Commanders looking very, very good offensively and defensively. The Falcons are the complete opposite. I think the Commanders will have this down as a must-win game to try and extend themselves in their division and in the NFC. And then we go down to the Chicago Bears. Again, mentioned it a minute ago, I've got their money line straight anyway. Don't really need to break this down again. I think there's just a bit of a contrast in the two teams so far this year. We're then going to go for the Packers. The Packers own the Cowboys. Shout out to Kobe for that one. Packers own the Cowboys. Again, the Cowboys defense has looked very, very sloppy. The Packers defense has looked very, very good. So I think they can sort of counter each other out. Packers offense looks good as well. Cowboys doesn't. So I think it's another one of those games that the Packers are going to try and cement themselves in the NFC against another NFC opponent. And then to finish this off, we're going to go for the Denver Broncos against the Bengals. Bengals without Joe Burrow. The Broncos defense is very good. So I think that basically wins them the game anyway. But if we want to break it down a little bit more, the Bengals 2-1 team, but they did lose last week 48-10 without Joe Burrow. Broncos actually lost the last 2 games as well, but again by 3 and by 2 points. This game, I don't think it comes close. I think the Broncos win this one outright fairly comfortably to cash us out on Monday Night Football. So with that one, if you put 1 unit on, you will get odds of around 10, so plus 1,000. So £10 will return you 100, and so on and so forth. So there is the Moneyline Parlay for this week. And I'm also going to add in an underdog parlay as well, and that's going to consist of the New York Jets. Again, I think the Jets can beat the Dolphins fairly comfortably. The Dolphins haven't looked very good, so we're going to go for the Jets. I'm also going to go for the Buccaneers against the Eagles. I mentioned that a minute ago, so I'm not going to break that down again. But I do think the Buccaneers can come out with a win. And then I'm also going to go for the Colts. I'm very high on the Rams this year, but I think the Colts have looked, incredible to start the season. They've beat some decent teams. They've actually shown that they're more than just a running back team. They've used Dan Jones very, very well. They've put up a lot of points. So they won 41-20 against the Titans, 29-28 against the Broncos, and 33-8 against the Dolphins. So I think they can sort of spread their wings a little bit in this game and give the Rams a good run for their money. So at this as well, you're going to get 15-1. So again, another 1 unit will return you £10 will return you £152 in this parlay. And then, do we have a touchdown parlay? I don't have a touchdown parlay just yet. So I will have a touchdown parlay, so you'll have to obviously go back to my Twitter. I might as well give you the rundown now because I'm signing off now anyway. So make sure you're following, make sure you like, make sure you retweet, make sure you have the notifications on. I will be dropping a touchdown parlay, a player prop parlay, and then I'm going to try and do something for the primetime games. I'm actually not in the country this weekend. I'm flying out to France on Saturday, but I'll try my best to be able to get these the extra plays out to you this weekend. So yeah, that's me. I'm going to sign out. Good luck to everyone playing fantasy this weekend. Good luck to everyone having a bet this weekend. I hope we all cash. I hope we all be successful. And I'll catch you next week for NFL Week 5. So I'm out. I'll catch you later.